Any movement on new commissioners?
Yeah, there's a little bit of activity. I think the mayor and or his staff are, I think they're quite aware now that you're eager for new membership. And some of you have been forwarding some candidates to me and to the mayor's office. So I am getting responses back like, thank you, we'll consider them, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think there's some communication now, at least that far.
That's good.
Yeah. Hi, Bailey.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Sure. We're just going to give another couple of minutes here for the commissioners to trickle in here. Hi, Carol.
Hi. Well, I can talk for a few minutes. Do we have a quorum yet?
We have 4.
Oh, I think we don't need much more than that.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah. Did you explain to the others my
Not yet.
situation?
No,
Okay,
no, go
well,
right ahead. Go ahead.
I'm babysitting a sick grandchild who's 3 years old. And so I'm going to mostly listen. And I've asked Andy to facilitate the meeting because you don't want to hear my background noise. And I'll participate to the extent that I can, but I plan to try to stay on the line to keep the quorum going. And I'll chime in when I feel like it's safe to do so.
I only see 3, Andy.
Oh, okay. So we have Scott, Carol,
And Marty.
and Marty. Okay, sorry, not
Hey,
yet, not yet.
I will say, Carol, that you babysitting your granddaughter is the reason why we do this in the first place, though.
Well, she's been sick, and so it's like more than a little challenging. So anyway, but having said that,
Well, here comes Nate.
oh, perfect.
You want to go ahead and do the minutes while we've got you?
Yeah, that's fine. Nate, I'm babysitting a sick grandchild. I'm sure you can relate.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, can they be approved as drafted?
Yes.
Okay, so
A
move.
motion.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Second? Nate or Marty, can you second approving the minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, good. Unless any opposed, say nay. All right, approved. Andy, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to you since I'm clearly unpredictable.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with our guest speaker. So one of the requests we had from commissioners, Scott, was an update on the Truman Road project. And I know several of us have heard various things over the past month or two, or if not longer, regarding Vision Zero and the bike lanes and concerns from the business community. So I know that was in front of council last week. And I saw Bailey and Jason had given a presentation, and I think it went pretty well, looks like from my perspective. So anyways, I don't want to take away too much thunder from you, Bailey. Did you have a presentation you wanted to share, or how did you want to proceed with this?
I do. I'll just share my screen. Let me know when you can see it.
I can see it.
All right. Great. Yeah, I'll introduce myself first and then I'll go through the presentation. I'm Bailey Waters. I'm in Public Works. And I am Chief Mobility Officer, aka on our bike pedestrian team. And I've been in Public Works for a year now as of this month. And I have lived and breathed Truman Road for like the past 5 months. So I'll try to keep my presentation sort of brief, but whatever questions you have, I'll probably have some sort of response for. So to also, my apologies if you guys can hear like people next to my cube. Hopefully you're not getting any of that background noise, but if you are, let me know. First, we'll just talk about project background and engagement, then what the proposed changes were, the costs and issues raised, and then any questions y'all might have. So in terms of project background, Truman Road Complete Streets Plan has been around for a while. It started engagement on that plan in 2017 through a PSP project, and they finished that plan in 2018. And with that PSP plan, there was protected bike lanes proposed in that plan, as you can see the cross section here. And there's something we learned through this project that you can't rely on engagement from the past, right? You always need to go re-engage. So anyway, just one lesson learned from us. But additionally, Truman Road is on our high injury network, which means it has a high amount of fatal or serious injury crashes on it. And with our new Vision Zero program, we are trying to perform corridor level alterations to roads in order to address the high injury network. And so this Truman Road plan that we implemented last fall was sort of a culmination of both. We had already had a PSP engagement done on it that recommended protected bike lanes, and then two, it's on our high injury network as one of our most dangerous streets in the city. And we know that road diets make roads safer, because Truman Road is a prime example of a 7-lane road that only needs 3 lanes. And when you give that extra space, people go speeding down the road. They can weave in and out of each other due to extra space, and just that extra space is part of what causes the danger, and hence why we implemented protected bike lanes on it. So that's kind of the project background and where we got to where we were in October of starting implementation. Here's sort of a heat map of our high injury network, just for your all's benefit. I actually might, I don't know if you're interested in it. We do have a version of this that you can see online that I'll put in the chat, that you can like zoom in and out and see if your street is on the high injury network or not, instead of a heat map version. But you can see that a lot of our high injury streets are more so in the Midtown area, heavily on the east side as well. And so and then these are some of the crash statistics along Truman Road, just the section of the bike lanes, Homes to Hardesty. In 2021, there were 67 injuries along the road. 2022, 3 people died, 78 injuries. And then you can see total number of crashes too, but we're mainly focused on serious and fatal injury crashes. And then, yeah, so it is just a very dangerous street. Planning sustainable places. I'm going to skip this slide. Additionally, there were different plans which Truman Road was identified as a good bike corridor, that it needed some sort of traffic calming. So those different area plans are listed here. This was our engagement log of all of the different meetings that were held via the PSP. It's very small here. It's more so for just saying, hey, we are logging our engagement, and there were quite a few stakeholder meetings had on it. But again, needed to re-engage in 2022. So in 2022, the engagement that we did was we sent mailers out, as we do with all protected bike lanes, and we mail those out inviting people to the public meetings to attend and provide comment. And we sent those out along Truman Road and all of our other corridors. And then after that engagement period, we then go to City Council and have them approve our year one network. So if we do bike lanes in 2023, we still have yet to go to council for those bike lanes. And so doing that engagement before we go to council gives constituents the opportunity to then, respond to their council people, whether or not they want it passed or not. So that's sort of how we go about our bike lane process. Truman Road in particular, the previous condition was 6 lanes of travel with a center turn lane, peak hour restricted parking on the outside lane. So you weren't allowed to park in the outside lane during the peak hour because it was a 3rd lane of travel. And our proposed condition was 4 lanes of travel with you could park against the bike lane and, well, actually, that was our initial proposed. What passed last week in ordinance was removing the bike lane on the north curb and making it a parking permanent lane. And then the south curb is now a mobility lane, which is sort of a narrower cycle track. So the bike lane is remaining on the south curb line, but the north curb line is going to be converted into a parking lane. The delineators and curb stops are starting removal this week, probably, if they haven't already. The initial installation of the bike lanes on each side of the street was around $751,000. We didn't get to complete that due to construction stopping. Converting it to a mobility lane is going to cost us about $442,000. Here are some of those costs broken out. There was a meeting held on January 6th where many concerns were brought up. We responded to those in our proposed design, and that's what was compromised on at council. Some of the issues that were brought up were safety issues from the parking there, traffic operations, land use access, getting loading in and out of some of those buildings, losing business, and then snow and emergency operations. So those are some of the issues raised. Our solution, like I've mentioned before, is a mobility lane. And I do have like the design here in some slides of some maybe drawings that, I don't know, some people like looking at, but others are like, that's way too engineering for me. But the south curve line is the mobility lane, and when there's a bus stop, it would be red paint for a bus stop. And the north side, people will be able to park there. We'll add markings that say park, so people know it's no longer a bike lane on the north side. But yeah, I will now let you all guide the conversations with whatever questions you might have for me.
What
Be
was
happy to answer.
what was the heat?
Can you repeat that, Marty?
The heat map? I didn't understand why it was called a heat map, or was it just?
The heat map is our high injury network. So the darker red means the more serious injury or fatal crashes happen in those areas. Whereas the light blue means not many people get seriously injured or die on the roads in those areas. So red means there's more fatal and serious injury crashes.
Okay, I just wondered why it was called a heat map.
It's just the way it's formatted as a map, in that it goes from one color to another gradually. I think that, I don't know if that's the official definition of a heat map, but
Okay.
something like that.
All right.
Mhm.
Just, that's all.
Okay.
Often
Yeah,
happens.
Marty, it sort of looks like our urban heat island though, doesn't it, Marty?
Yeah. I was wondering- I wondered if there was any relation, or just.
Not particularly, but it is interesting, like when I was reading the climate action plan, how our most at-risk areas do highly align with our most at-risk areas for our dangerous streets. Like those maps very much align with each other, which is just something that we need to be aware of as a city. So.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Any
So,
other
yeah.
questions?
So, yeah, you covered a lot of ground quick, so maybe you said this and I just missed. So, what's the current status with the engagement with the businesses that were opposing then, and the um, the change from two sides of the street to the one side of the street? What position are we in then?
Yeah, good question. I don't think I exactly answered it. Um, I don't want to speak for the businesses that were upset and if they are happy or not. But the bike lanes are being removed from the north side of the street and it's being converted into a mobility lane on the south side of the street. So sort of like Gillum in that it's two directional. Um, I think they are okay with the compromise, but I'm not necessarily like, I don't know, super
Sure,
aware there. Yeah.
sure. So, I wouldn't know squat about how you design these kinds of things, but I'm just curious, you use that that's a compromise, and I'm just, I guess why is that a compromise rather than having a single lane on each side of the street versus a double lane on one side of the street? I mean, what makes that seem better or worse for the different parties involved? Or
It's a compromise in the preferred bicycle lane safety and bicycle lane design. It's safer on a super wide road to have bicycle lanes on both sides of the street so that people are expecting cyclists from that direction. Um, in the same direction as them in that lane next to them. But so it's
oh,
a
I see.
compromise in bike safety, but it's a plus for businesses being able to park against the curb. They want to be able to park against the curb, so that's the compromise. If we're decreasing a little bit of the bicycle safety for the pro of having
Hmm.
curbside parking. Yeah.
And is the separation between traffic and the bike lane then just is there a curb or a full barrier like there is on some bridges and things, or is it just a painted stripe, or what? Again,
Um,
maybe you said this, but there's so
no
much to
worries.
cover.
Yeah, sorry, I did go fast. There, maybe it's shown here. There are the delineators. Maybe I'll make this bigger. The delineators separating the bike lane from the driving lane. And then they have, since this photo was taken, installed the curb stops in between those delineators. So the concrete
Hmm.
curb is between those delineators, separating it from the driving traffic.
Oh, okay. Yep, good. And during the initial planning and studies and that sort of thing, again, I know that you said there was quite a long engagement. I'm just curious, I actually grew up out on the east side there off Truman Road, so I kind of know that area a little bit. What is there an estimate as to like how much traffic a day you're expecting on the lane? And obviously it's a case of, build it and they will come kind of a thing. But I'm just curious as to what you'd know about the current load and where you think this might lead.
Are you saying traffic in the bike lane or
Yeah, yeah.
vehicle? Okay.
Like, right, expected bike use and current bike use. And, again, I'm all in favor. I mean, we should be making more of these things that we can build networks, but I don't have any ideas to, what, what the expectation was during the planning phases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a couple different answers to that. Thought we don't build bike lanes because people are already biking there. We build them to try to get more people to bike there to feel safe there because it's like you don't build a bridge where someone's swimming across a river. Like you build it
Right.
that,
Sure.
and I stole that one from Bobby. But anyway, you build it and they will come, as the saying goes. I do know it is being used now. I don't have like actual counts, but I live in the historic Northeast, so I go in this area quite a bit, and almost
Mhm.
every time I'm on there, I see someone using it, whether it's someone pushing a shopping cart or a scooter or a bike. Um, Lots of people are using it, and I do expect the usage to be higher than people might initially expect due to the like lower car ownership rates of in this part of town, especially and around the corridor and the heavy bus corridor east-west connection as well. So I don't have counts for you right now, but we do expect, BIQUAT KC got a grant and they've been taking counts at some of our different facilities, and this might be one of them later this year. So that's been helpful. And then
Yeah,
Rachel, yeah, I see your question, Rachel, in the chat. Are there businesses on the south side too? The answer is yes, there are. And we do have in our design to add protected parking on the south side on certain blocks. So like in this block from Woodland to Euclid, there would be parking for those businesses and it'd be one lane eastbound. So that's been accounted for in some parts, but not all.
So are there places to go get groceries or drug, prescriptions or hardware or, I guess it
Yeah.
seems like an entire package that has to happen in order to get people to be excited about, getting a bicycle and starting doing it.
Yeah. There is a grocery store, at least one, maybe plural along here. And I was out at a site visit there and there was someone biking home with their groceries. So, I mean, that's just one and it's anecdotal, but yeah, there are lots of commercial businesses along here, a few restaurants and different things for people to be able to get to safely. But yeah, per Laura's help and nudge, I have been noting the climate action plan and just the connection that we need to be making between all of the different things we're working on, in that it's not just a bike lane project, it's not just a Vision Zero project, but it also ties to our like climate goals of getting more people switching modes, so we can tie all of our stories together.
Okay. Any other questions?
The slides, are the slides available for the commission to have a copy of?
Yeah, I can send those to Andy, and then if you want to send them
Yep.
off, maybe. Cool.
Will do. Actually, yeah, send them to me and then we'll get them out to everybody. Thank you.
That
Great,
sounds
great.
good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am going to jump as I have a 4:30, but thank you
Thank you,
all.
Bailey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So for those of you that joined on a little bit late, I am going to help facilitate this commission meeting as Carol is via telephone. So she is with us, but may be preoccupied with some other distractions. So anyhow, we will continue on. We've already approved the minutes from
And
last
you
month.
can tell I'm taking care of the sick grandchild.
You know,
Good.
well, didn't want to assume that. I just thought I'd keep it neutral. All right. Thank you, Carol. So next on the agenda is let's see, the budget discussion, FY24 budget discussion. And I think the way I'm going to kind of just do this briefly is kind of talk a little bit about the budget process and what we asked for in the budget and what is in the proposed budget. Can tell you a little bit about how the hearings have been going. And then I think Carol wants to steer this conversation about what you as the EMC may be willing to put together in terms of a support letter or a letter of recommendation to the mayor and council. So with that, I'm going to be pretty brief if I can, but starting off, our budget cycle starts in October, actually. So last October, all the directors are asked what decision packages we are going to ask for. And right off the bat, just to put this out there, we are to assume that our budget will be exactly the same as it was in the existing budget year. So assuming you get all the same stuff in terms of dollars and staff, what additional programs or projects do you need funding for or staff for? And that's what we call a decision package. So for OEQ, one of the things that we talked about, being that we had recently passed the climate protection resiliency plan was staff. You know, one of the things that we struggle with is capacity to take on more workload. Laura's working pretty hard. We're all being pulled in so many different directions. As you can see, we facilitate working with other departments. We're looking for opportunities to collaborate with external stakeholders. And there's a lot of work that goes into doing that and creating those relationships. And of course, during part of that, of course, we had a vacancy after Jerry retired. And even though we've brought Kelly on board to fill that vacancy, I still foresee that to take on all the additional work that the climate resiliency plan is looking for, we need capacity. And sure, we might be able to capture some of that in the grant opportunities that are coming our way through the IRA and the infrastructure bill. But the reality is it still takes somebody time and effort to go after the grant opportunities, to administer those grants, to facilitate all of that and or the program. So what we did is in our budget decision package, we asked for 2 positions for OEQ, one centered around homes and buildings to take on all those activities and initiatives related to homes and buildings. And then the second position was around natural systems. So somebody to help me, Marty, with the nuisance code and or the urban forest master plan, tree plantings, all those kinds of things related to the natural systems. So that was what we asked for, 2 positions. What happens then is the city manager, the budget office, and everybody digests all those decision packages that are being proposed by all the departments into the proposed budget, which is what the city manager gives to council, and which is being deliberated right now. So unfortunately, if you had a chance to review the proposed budget, OEQ did not get the 2 positions we asked for. Our funding is straight up the same as it was last year, and same position numbers. So they did not give us any additional positions. What I will highlight that is in the proposed budget that you might be interested in is that the LED streetlight conversion was funded. So that project is still continuing. And I think we've shown you the map on our website, how that conversion project is coming along. So $11.25 million is being put into continuing the conversion along that. Yeah, Molly, I did not forget about those positions in codes. So, and yeah, the 5 positions in city planning, they were also not funded. So nothing for energy code support, nothing for climate protection and the resiliency plan in terms of staffing. Other things, though, that were put in the budget besides the LED streetlight conversion, there is $1 million being put in for additional tree canopy, and that goes towards the 10,000 trees in 3 years, which is what the goal is for the city manager. So that $1 million is being given to neighborhoods to kind of address the additional tree planting, and we'll probably work through various existing programs that we've got. There is also $5 million proposed for more rebuild KC grants. So we did a big release of that. So that this will be a second round, but a much smaller version. So about $5 million available there. You'll see that in there $1 million towards trash carts and about $1.1 million for bulky item pickups, expanding that program. About $1.4 million for recycling carts. So this spring, summer, fall, the recycling carts will start rolling out to the residents of Kansas City and trash carts. So enhanced street litter cleaning, some things there also are included in the budget. In terms of electric vehicles, the KCI is getting $2.5 million towards 7 electric buses to kind of continue transportation at the KCI. And the last thing I would note that I did want to bring up is that the equity office, which was a staff of 1 person, is now up to they're putting 4 full-time positions in that office. So they're growing. So I think that's a good thing to mention here. So with that, that's kind of what was proposed in the budget. Of course, this is the time when council looks to hear from the community and the stakeholders. What is it that you want to see in the budget? The last budget hearing, which was last night, I would say the hot topics were $6 million that are being proposed to design the new police detention or the new detention facility for the city. So that's kind of a hot button item right now. Second is a reduction in funds for the ATA. So a lot of folks were talking about issues related to the ATA, some of the infrastructure needs that they have, east-west corridors that need to be done, folks that have a hard time getting from point A to point B and how long it takes to receive service. So that's another issue, but we were also brought up in terms of climate action. So many of the folks that testified on behalf of OEQ was to talk about the positions and how can you pass a climate plan but not provide additional funding and or staff positions to support it. And that goes towards the energy code as well as the urban forest master plan. So with that, one of the things, Carol, if you're able to jump on at some point, I think, you know, the Climate Protection Steering Committee did put together a letter of recommendation, which was sent to the mayor and council. I did provide you all a copy of that this morning, so you'd have a chance to see what they were proposing. Hopefully you had a chance to review that. So I think the intention here, at least from Carol's perspective, is to maybe not necessarily copy that verbatim, but kind of focus on issues related to staffing. So obviously staffing around the energy code, staffing in OEQ, but a much broader issue that I think Carol brought up in here is vacancies across all of our departments. One of the things I explained is that we are struggling citywide during the budget hearings. You would have heard that citywide, we're at about a 32% vacancy rate. So even though we've done a lot to increase the pay for city staff, we can't get people to take the jobs. And I tried to give a position to somebody a couple weeks ago, and you know I couldn't lure them in. And the issue is the residency requirement. You know, a great example of this is mechanics. Our fleet needs mechanics, and you got a lot of great folks coming up through vocational schools in a lot of the rural communities like Kearney and Green Valley and all those that come to our job fairs, and they're very interested in the job, but they don't want to relocate to Kansas City. So we struggle with the residency requirement, and there is a bit of an issue because the police department have now been released from residency requirements via the state. So now we have kind of an inequity going on between city staff and the police department, where we are still bound by residency and they are not. So it's clearly limiting our ability to bring quality candidates into the city to help. And that's affecting all kinds of departments. It's affecting our permitting folks who do permits for construction, for buildings. It's affecting Public Works' ability to maintain the streets. I mean, it's just all across the board. You've got service issues. So, anywho, I think that sort of summarizes some bullet points that Carol had provided to me, really focusing specifically on positions to help support the climate plan, positions to support the energy code. And one of the recommendations she had put together is that maybe what the EMC can recommend is that the city undertakes a more thorough review of the barriers associated with, you know, bringing people into the city and see how else they can try to alleviate those barriers. I named residency as one of them, but there may be others. So,
Andy, I'd be curious. Is the residency does that apply to all positions then, except for the police?
yeah. Apparently it's a charter requirement that if you work for the city, then you have to live within the city limits. Typically, when we offer a position to somebody, and if they live outside the city limits, they have 9 months to move within the city limits. Sure, you can kind of bump that to maybe a year to get them to move within city limits. But even for me, I had a 2-year limited term contract position that I wanted to offer to somebody. And you would think I could get a waiver for that for just a 2-year position. And no, it's still because we're under a charter requirement. It has to be changed in the charter.
Are they required to be in person?
In person.
I'm just thinking that if they have a job and they have to come down to City Hall, they might get tired of making that long haul from Grandview, and that might encourage them to actually move.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I think it just depends on the department, the division to decide for them. I mean, right now, for the most part, depends on the job. Some folks have the availability to telecommute and all that, and in other situations, there's none of it at all. Just depends on the department, division, and what the job tasks are.
Yeah.
I got a quick question about the charter piece. Does that mean it requires approval by voters, or is that something the council can do?
Yeah, I've heard it has to come from the vote of the people, but I did not follow up with the law department to confirm that, but I believe that's true.
Thanks.
Do we have enough water trucks to support the new trees?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know. We may have the trucks, we might not have the drivers. I don't know.
Okay.
So I guess, Carol, if you're able to jump on here, I don't know if you're looking for a motion to put together a letter of response. I think that's the intention, is for the MC to do something here.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if EMC would like to put together a letter of response, and I'm happy to work on drafting it, but I need some guidance as to what of these things that we're discussing or other things that you might have on your mind you would want to have included. The one thing about the residency requirement, it sounds like it's no big deal to move into town, but the truth is where people live is a really sticky thing, and people don't move on the drop of a hat. They have mortgages and schools and, relationships and community. So it's a big deal.
So I guess the question for the commission is, what resonates with all of you? What would you like to see in a letter of response?
I thought they did the Climate Protection Committee did a really good job with their letter. I really liked the things they had outlined. But getting you guys support is important. And more trees. Is that, so I'm assuming that it stayed at $1 million. It wasn't that you got an additional $1 million, so now they're 2. It still stays at $1 million for trees.
It was 1 million additional towards, that's being funneled to the neighborhoods department. The Parks Department is being funded at their usual level, which is still far inadequate. I don't know exactly what their budget number is for trees, but it's way below the 5 million that was recommended. And I heard today, one of the Parks employees was here, and he even put out 5 million is too low. It should be more like 7. Yeah. And, there are lots of opportunities still for trees. I mean, on grant dollars from the IRA, and I think in the Farm Bill, there's some dollars there. So I think we're expecting some things to drop before too long. But yeah, we're going to start with the $1 million that we have that will make it through the budget, but it's still not enough.
So
I'm
just curious. Yeah, the funding for the enforcement codes, is part of that because of the HB 580 maybe being imminent. I know you didn't say anything about that, but maybe
Later in the agenda.
Yeah. I don't know what to say there, but do you know? I mean, this Columbia has 5 staff and KC has 3. So what are they doing different? Do they have a earmarked funding? Or do they have some grants or something different? I mean, or is it just that the will is different?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know we used to know the sustainability manager. I mean, we are connected with Columbus. Columbia, we talked to them a little bit, kind of networking a little bit with them. And I don't know if they just have just more will. It's more, we've never really asked the question, how did you get the 5? Unless, Laura, you have that insight, or they shared that secret. But
Well, their mayor is their former sustainability manager, so that helps. But yeah, I mean, it's a college town. There is a lot of progressive movement, especially on the climate front in a town like that. But also, because Columbia owns their own utility and things like that, I think it makes it a little bit easier for them to make the case for it. But I mean, in the end, it all comes down to tax dollars, and they have the tax dollars to cover it. And we've once again built a city we can't afford.
Yeah. I appreciate the discussion. I'm just trying to think if there's any angles on this that we've missed, to how to present some new idea.
Yeah, I had some question. All the federal money that was supposed to have been allocated, does any of that trickle down to the city?
yeah, so Marty, that's what we were sort of, we've got somebody in the mayor's office that's been very much kind of following up on the various opportunities that are becoming available, but it's not all out there yet. I mean, we're still waiting for various opportunities to present themselves. And, we've heard some will be late spring, summer, even as late as fall before some of those some of that availability becomes known to us. So we are monitoring that. Our grant person in the mayor's office is doing a great job. Laura's been connecting with her, so they've been kind of wading through the various current opportunities. And we're going to go for the dollars where we can go for them. That supports the climate plan and the various programs and initiatives we want to take on. Also, those that support our partners and our stakeholders. Because we just because I don't have the staffing, we obviously can't take on everything ourselves. So anywhere where we can partner with you or support a nonprofit, that would be great, for others to help take on some of that.
And I just want to add to that. So yes, we're looking at a lot of that. A lot of that money can't be used for salaries. A lot of it's got to be spent in 1 year. So there are some federal programs that do have salaries associated, so we could hire staff, but it'd still only be a short-term thing. So from the staffing perspective, it's better to have dedicated people in-house that understand the processes up to speed when the money comes down than it would be to try to hire somebody out of a grant. I don't know if that's what you're getting at. The other piece with the House bill I wanted to bring up is, I know they were talking about that later, but even if the House bill keeps moving forward, it would be better to have the position on the books in case it doesn't than to have to come back and try to find positions later when we're not in a budget season. I mean, if they just sit on the books because we don't end up implementing the ordinance, then there's just positions that sit vacant until they're removed. But it's much harder to put it on later.
Right. And it's not uncommon for some of the larger departments. They do already have, their positions already on the books. They're just not filled positions. And sometimes what departments will do is they'll repurpose those positions, or they become little slush funds, for, if we need program efficiency dollars, we'll draw from those vacant positions, so that's the reality. So I'm not saying that city planning might not be able to figure out how to implement the energy code if they don't get these 5 new positions, but that was what their budget request was 5 positions. Which, well, I'll cover it more when we get to the House bill. I'll talk more about what's going on there. So I think Carol's still looking to, I don't know if there's any other ideas and thoughts. Okay. Well, I will work with Carol. I know she's got kind of a rough draft of something in mind. So we'll work to kind of put something together for the EMC to support. We still have probably a week or two to get that to the mayor and council before some the big decisions are made. I think the 27th is, let me look here. It'd be the 23rd. I forget which the day is, but anyhow, we don't have a lot of time, but we got at least a week or so before we need to get a letter in just to support. So I'll work with Carol on that and we'll go from there. Right. I think the next thing on our agenda is the energy code update. All right. So, and I see Billy has joined us, so I may lean on Billy a little bit to see where he's coming from his angle, but not yet. So let me just go over what's going on. So just backing up a step, back in January is when House Bill 580 kind of was introduced in the Missouri House. Went in front of a committee. Some of us went down to Jeff City, testified in front of one of the committees that had this bill. At the end of the day, it did pass out of committee and has, as far as I understand, has not gone to the full House at this point, but is expected to. I'm not sure if it's going to be before spring break or after spring break, but somewhere around there. All indications are from our lobbyist in Jeff City that the House is going to pass this thing. That the reality is that we, at least from the perspective of the city, what we're going to do is start talking specifically with the senators here locally and trying to build a coalition among the senators and using their contacts in other cities as well to try to stop this particular this bill at the Senate level. So what happened as it was passed out of committee, it looked like it did merge with another bill to kind of take on what was known as the Building Permit Reform Act. So our codes folks had been watching that under a different bill. They do have concerns about that aspect of the bill. It talks about various things related to homeowners and permitting. I'm not going to get into the details of that. They're very much concerned about it. But now they've merged it into this House substitute. And from there, it's going on to the full House. So our city planning folks are reaching out to the local senators, trying to set up meetings with them. There's a chance they'll be in town during spring break. So we'll try to catch them here locally. And if not, then we'll make a few trips to Jeff City to try to educate them, tell them what our issues are. Obviously, this is not just a something that affects Kansas City. It'll affect, several cities and counties across the state. We as the city, we are still working through the details of the 2021 Energy Code with a plan to have it implemented and ready to go in July. So regardless of what the state does, we still have to continue planning and making arrangements in-house on the administrative aspects of it. So my office has been working with city planning. We've been meeting on a regular basis to kind of work through the in-house issues. And then our intention is probably another month or so down the road, we'll start reaching out to our stakeholders and others to get their input on some of the implementation aspects of this code. So at this point, we're still just dealing with in-house staff. We're talking with some of our internal departments on compliance and other issues, and then we'll talk to the external stakeholders. So I know there's been some questions from some folks as to when will we reach out, and we had kind of come up with a timeline back a couple of months ago that we want to wait a little bit longer, and wait a little till we got a little closer towards implementation in July. So I'm guessing somewhere in April or May is when we'll start reaching out to all the stakeholders on both sides of the issue, and just to get their input on implementation. Okay. So with that, I do want to kind of give Billy an opportunity. I know you've been kind of following this as well, and I appreciate you making the trips to Jeff City. Is there anything you might want to throw out there just for the commission to know?
Thank you, Mr. Savastino, members of the commission. Hi, Billy Davies, 6th District resident and staffer with the Sierra Club Missouri chapter, environmental grassroots organization, one of the oldest in Missouri and one of the oldest in the country. And appreciate the opportunity to address you all outside of public comment, and appreciate all of the work that this commission, the staff, and I know a lot of other folks working on this, but I know a lot of this effort has been carried by folks here, and folks see you and appreciate all of this work. Staff has covered a lot of it, that this is moving pretty quickly through the House. It's recently passed through the Rules Committee, which is kind of a pro forma issue before getting to the floor. But yeah, we are Kansas Cityans, as well as folks from across the state, have been making regular trips to Jefferson City, meeting with different caucuses in the state Senate already, because with the anticipation that this will make it through, but also meeting with leadership in the House of Representatives as well, including the Majority Floor Leader's office, Minority Floor Leader, folks in charge of determining when bills get to the floor, raising issues across partisan aisles, and also continue to reach out to other stakeholders, other local jurisdictions. As Andy mentioned, well over 100 would be impacted negatively by this, that would have to roll their current codes off and try to update them, causing a hassle at the expense of residents. And we appreciate your continued support, engaging with elected officials. We're at your and the staff's and the city's disposal as far as continuing to help get amplify voices. It is having an impact. Folks have made it very clear to folks we've been able to meet with in Jefferson City that this bill will hurt people. It will hurt cities in their ability to head off issues related to indoor air quality and energy inefficiency, especially in light of the climate crisis that is being heard. And it is important to keep up that steady push. I will also just note that look, and this is publicly information, if you look at the testimony sheets, they have a record of folks who have testified in person or sent testimony. I will note that, as far as both sides of this issue in Kansas City, we'll just note that the folks who are opposed to Kansas City's leading efforts in adopting a better energy efficiency code, they have taken positions on this and appeared at all, the whole list here. It's a perfect attendance sheet, all in favor of this bill passing, which is disconcerting, but wanted to point that out, make the commission aware of that. But happy to, I think you all have my contact information, happy to connect you all with any, if you all are planning on leading initiatives to go to Jefferson City or continue working on this, encourage you all of you to keep it up. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Billy.
I didn't understand who the people were who were in favor of it. Could you fill that out a little bit more?
So the bill seems like it was introduced by builders, home builders particularly. So one of the things I noticed when we were in Jeff City initially, in front of the first committee, I think there were at least 3 folks that I think I counted that were related to building homes. And, from their perspective, they see the city, our code is a 2021 energy code is what the city passed back end of last year. What this House bill does is it will roll it back to somewhere effectively about a 2009 standard, which is interesting because across the state, many of the energy codes are already above a 2009 standard. They might be 2012, which is where the city used to be. It might be 2018. There's variants all across the state. So this is kind of and this is primarily focused on the residential energy code. So, so from their perspective, one of the things I kept hearing when I'm sitting there is from that, they want, it just raises the cost of, building a new house. And from their perspective, it prices people out of purchasing new homes. So, some of our arguments were associated with, well, it's not just the new construction costs. From our perspective, it's the cost of your heating and cooling through the life of the home. So you have to factor that in. If you don't have, the most energy efficient code, then you're going to pay more for your energy usage. So that didn't seem to resonate very well there. One of the things that they often, I mean, as a representative of the city, and I don't know if I mentioned to this group, I've talked to a few about this, is that as the chief environmental officer, I was the last person that probably should have been in front of that committee. They did not respond well to me at all. It might have been better from our building code official to be there, that might be able to speak their terms more so. So, yeah, it's, and they look at, the funding coming down from the IRA to support the 2021 energy code, that we talked about it as part of passing the code. They refer to it as it's a money grab by the city. That's why we passed the energy code. We were looking to grab dollars from the federal government from the IRA regarding this. That was our motivation. So these are the arguments, pros and cons. You can see some of that on their website when you review some of the testimony. So anyhow, yeah, it's typically the building folks are opposed to this, developers. And we're starting to get that backlash even locally here in terms of the tree preservation ordinance as well. The developers are kind of using the climate plan, the energy code, and they're just they're using this to make arguments as to why things are too expensive to do. That we're driving development out, building out with these green initiatives. So
It's just a very small drop in the bucket, but over here on our block, we have developers and real estate. We have a symposium every year, and we've been pushing sustainability there, trying to get that, because there are hundreds of builders and developers that come to that. We had Ashok Gupta and Jonathan Arnold this year. So trying to get the word out to the building community.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, again, it's maybe small potatoes, but I sat in on a Heartland Renewable Energy Society meeting a week or so back. That was kind of the same thing. A real expert speaker whose name escapes me at the moment, a woman with Metropolitan Energy Center, gave a good talk about, many builders are also confused about, they think that this is going to the 2021 standard is this big ominous leap forward. And she showed that there are actually multiple pathways to achieving the standard that are not a big stretch compared to where we're already at. And it's really disappointing that it looks this way. And some in that meeting were asserting that the real driver is not even local builders as much as out of state builders maybe that are wanting to come in and build lots of schlocky cheap housing.
With updated codes? That doesn't make sense. Scott, was it
with ancient codes?
Is Ashley Sadowski, was she the speaker?
No.
Might have been
Yeah.
might have been Mary English, maybe.
It was not, but I do know that name.
Right. Was it Charlotte?
I'm
think of the last
sorry,
name, but-
I cannot remember the name
That's
right
okay.
now. Yeah.
That's all right.
That's okay.
She was very knowledgeable on the codes, though. If you needed somebody as a consultant or trainer, oh my gosh, she was just she could go through all kinds of details of the codes and how how the different pathways that they can be met. If you want to build this way, then you can build it that way. And
Right.
things such as an overall energy package that if you choose the walls and roof to look a certain way, you could meet the code by installing energy efficient appliances, for example.
Yeah, I think that's Charlotte. She does work for MEC as a sub and has been doing a lot of the training for city staff on the energy code, as well as others. As MEC's been rolling out the training in the community for the energy code. I think she is a trainer.
Mhm.
I just I can't fathom how they could see the burned out cars in California and not realize that they are responsible, and I am too, for those burned out cars and the dead people all around the world. I don't understand how they're so myopic or narrow visioned. And if we could, I mean, somehow we've got to reach that level of understanding that the money grab is horse manure. I mean, there's the money grab right there.
Okay. Any other comments on the energy code? I think that's I think the update I wanted to provide. We're moving forward internally until something happens, even at the state level. It's not clear cut. I mean, if it passes at the state level, there will be parts of the code that will survive. A lot of the focus is on residential. We'll still have a commercial side that's still intact, but there's going to be other bits and pieces to work through. So our city planning folks are sorting through kind of both avenues, primarily hoping it stays intact, but if not, they're already foreseeing what changes they may have to make to accommodate. And frankly, it's a mess, trying to have various codes for different things. Yeah, it's just all muddy. So moving on in our agenda here. So tree preservation and protection. That particular ordinance was in front of committee back a few weeks ago. That presentation that was put on by the mayor's office and the Parks Department, Bridging the Gap was there, Kristen Riot was there. They presented the latest version of the tree preservation and protection ordinance. The developers had some say in what was in that. It had obviously there have been negotiations that have been going on up to that point. Unfortunately, a lot of folks that watched that, including myself, it was pretty clear that a lot of components to the original ordinance were kind of taken out or modified. There was definitely concessions being made to the developers on that particular ordinance. It was held in the committee to show up today in front of committee, and literally about an hour or two before the committee meeting at I think it was 1:30 today, we got word that they were basically had a committee substitute and that the committee has chosen not to take action on it. So, that there's two things. One, I think, is it could come back in front of committee next week for testimony to be given on the committee substitute. And I think that's the likely route. But the other avenue, as I've seen happen, is that sometimes the committee doesn't make a recommendation on an ordinance and it goes to full council the next day. And then that would be, in this case, tomorrow. So I can check the docket for tomorrow's legislative meeting to see where that committee substitute ended up, just to be sure it's not going to be in front of the full council. I'm also waiting back to hear from city planning to confirm which direction that ordinance is going to go. I'm hoping because it's a substitute, they introduced it. I'm thinking it's probably going to get bounced till next week. But I will monitor it and let you all know. I do not know what the changes are that are being proposed at this point. Just through the grapevine, I've heard that there are further concessions being made. You know, some of the things that came up originally were, you know, the developers were concerned about the dollars, that if they didn't do tree plantings, they could, you know, in lieu of provide dollars to the tree fund that the city has. But their concern is the legality of that and how those dollars are to be expended, and where, you know, so there was some true legal questions to answer. The second one would be there's the other issues relating to what, you know, what percentage of a tree canopy do they need to replace? You know, whether it's in by dollars or by tree plantings. And so I think 30% was the number. But the concessions that were being proposed included things like the stream setback ordinance. If you are already protecting a certain number of trees in the stream setback ordinance, that gives you credit towards compliance with the tree preservation ordinance. Another one is that you have to have 1 acre of trees to be subject to the ordinance. So, you know, it's really focusing on older growth stands of trees versus trees that are more spread out and not necessarily would, you know, be grouped together. So, Carol, you want to jump on? Looks like you're trying to chime in.
Yeah, I'm in the car by myself now.
Okay.
Anecdotally, I just want to say this about the building code and the tree thing. With the interest rates getting a little higher and some of the stress of materials costs, the pushback from some sectors of the development community has really gotten pretty aggressive. And it isn't everybody, but they are going after the environmental things because they're kind of what's happening now. And it's not good for us. It's not good for the resiliency plan to have the development community arguing that it hurts the city. So that's just a blanket thing. The other thing is they feel like the city's hard to work with and it takes too long to get things through the city, which was one of the reasons that I was concerned about being more aggressive about trying to figure out how we could fill positions at the city. Because it takes a certain amount of manpower to make the machine work. The tree thing is largely a Northland issue, and they have vast tracts up there that are wooded and also have pretty dramatic topography. So there definitely are streams and steep slopes as well that would ordinarily be wooded. The practice that has been going on up there is they clear the site just brutally. I don't know any other way to say it. And then apply for a plan. Then apply for whatever they want to do. And so part of the impetus for the tree preservation is to require them to have some sort of a plan, to be intentional before they get the clearance permit from the city. And so that's really one of the main reasons to pass it, even if there are some concessions, is to just insert thinking at a different stage. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so, but there's big pushback.
I like what you said, insert thinking at a different stage. I mean, that's really exactly what needs to happen.
Well, the staff has worked so hard on this, and they have felt like more than once that they had come to agreement with the developers. But one of the things that's happening, the same thing's happening with the building code. The industry, and again, it's not everyone, some members of the industry are presenting numbers that are highly inflated. They may not be out of the ballpark for large lot, big home development numbers, but they are not average numbers, and they are certainly not affordable housing numbers. So they're not talking about what it's going to cost to build a $300,000 house if you add these things. They're talking about what it costs to build a $750,000 house if you add these things. And so it's just, it's a tough thing to try to argue against because they're challenging the numbers all the time. And anyway, but the most important thing, I think, with the tree thing is to hang on to it and to keep it inserted at the level before they do the clearance of the land. Then you can talk about planned units and cluster development and other options. But if you've already leveled the site before you even ask anybody, bad news. So that's my 2 cents. I will ring off.
Okay. All right.
Tara.
That was worth a quarter. Not
All
2
right.
cents. Not 2 cents.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments about the tree preservation protection? We'll keep you posted. I'll send out an email as I find out more specific details about what that committee substitute is going to look like. I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of it if I can. All right. Next thing is resolution number 230161 update. So what that is all about is there have been various rumors about a landfill being proposed in South Kansas City. And so the rumors are true that there is a developer that is looking around at a piece of various pieces of property down south, kind of close to Raymore, for development of a landfill. And it came to the city's attention that this was going on. A lot of folks were asking, what do we have to do with it? This was totally through a private developer kind of going forth on their own to try to do something like this. So what ended up happening is a resolution was introduced that basically had a couple of components to the resolution. But what's important about it is that they went in front of committee last week, and it passed out of committee and went to full council on Thursday, and full council approved it as well. So what that resolution says is just in terms of the landfill down there, that it's a general statement that the council opposes the establishment of the landfill or any transfer facilities in that location at this time. And so that was the first part of the resolution. The second part is that it's directing the city manager, aka city staff, to do a kind of a needs assessment for Kansas City to see, do we need a landfill? What is the current capacity? What do we have in the region already? Looking at transfer facilities, landfills. So we need some type of needs assessment to give council some factual information to consider if and when a developer comes forth to the city to propose such a landfill in that area. So the resolution directs the city manager to do that. We have a 6-month time window to do that assessment, and then report back to council about what comes out of that. Until then, the fourth thing that the resolution does is that it puts a moratorium on any actions by our city planning folks to approve any particular permits or project plans or zoning changes related to any project related to a demolition landfill or solid waste facility or transfer facility. So it's kind of just putting a hold on any of those types of projects that might be proposed through our permits folks until we get the assessment report back. So that's where it's at. If any of you have been tracking that issue, I know I get calls from it from time to time, and that's where we're at. So at this point, we've got we got an assessment report to do. So I know the city manager's office in concert with the Public Works Department and our office will be kind of working through the details of what to do on that assessment report. Okay. And when we get to a point in terms of what that report says, we'll be happy to share it at that point. Okay. Any questions about the landfill and the resolution that the council passed last month or last week?
So Andy, I realize this is probably out in left field there for this needs assessment, but you know, looking at the climate protection plan, there's a lot of sections in there about materials recycling and you know, food waste composting versus landfilling or something. I don't remember all the pieces, but you know, are there any ways that those kinds of things can be woven into this assessment? You know, to basically say, hey, we need to be doing a better job of residential and industrial recycling of materials or whatnot.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we internally have looked at what is our solid waste plan for the city. So we've had plenty of internal conversations about that, and I'm going to kind of withhold some commentary on that. But I think if we can get at least an acknowledgement in the assessment report that what the city needs, and it's our opinion here, that the city needs a up-to-date, a comprehensive solid waste management plan that addresses technology, addresses the composting, recycling, all of these things in a much more comprehensive manner. The existing solid waste plan that the city uses is outdated. It's old. I mean, we're talking years back. So, yeah, I don't know if we can get that in as part of the scope of this assessment, but I'm sure those topics are going to become obvious as we start doing that assessment report. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. 2008 was the last time we have a solid waste plan. I know a lot of you know we've been working on the Lead for Cities project. I brought that up back several months ago, and so I know Rachel and staff that were collecting data on our solid waste practices. You know, one of the things we discovered is that yeah, our plan is from 2008. It doesn't address the current needs, the current status of technology, and the way things are going in Kansas City right now. So anyhow, we got that in the climate plan, and I'm kind of hoping that as we work out the scope, I'm assuming this is going to be contracted out to one of our environmental consulting companies that we have access to. We'll see where we might be able to bring some of that awareness to those issues into that assessment report. So that gives us some legs. And, you know, I think we're also looking for, maybe there's some opportunities on grants that are coming down the pipe where we might be able to go for a grant that supports a more comprehensive plan for us. So, yeah, you look for these opportunities where you can, but yeah, I think that's the long answer I have for you, Scott.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because yeah, I'm just kind of you know, shooting from the hip here, right? But 2008, that's back when China was still accepting lots of materials too, right?
Right. Yeah, and
So,
since that time, yeah, we've just looking at what Lead for Cities offered in terms of credits for a more comprehensive solid waste plan. There's some pretty cool things going on out there in terms of technology, you know. So, not sure, you know, if how much of that would be implementable here in Kansas City, but certainly worth looking at. Okay. So any other questions about the landfill? All right, hearing none. Onward to the OEQ report. So Laura, I need to take a breath. I'm going to let you speak to the Environmental Achievement Awards. Let's start with that.
Sure. So it's about that time again where we do the Environmental Achievement Awards. And last year, if you all will remember, we ended up kind of foregoing the Environmental Achievement Awards and not having them because all three of the nominations that we got were for people that bike to work. And that was all we got. So I wanted to know if, of course, are we doing the Environmental Achievement Awards again? That's up to you guys. And if so, I was gonna bring up one of the nomination forms. I tried to get the newer one online, but everything keeps dying. So we're gonna look at 2021. It's actually fine. It's not any different than 2022, except for the date at the top. So, but I'm wondering if, because we got all of these specifically employees biking to work, if we wanted to change the award criteria in any way to kind of discourage stuff like that and encourage more city-specific projects, or if you wanted to just keep going and see what we get. Criteria right now.
I sort of like the idea of rewarding innovation at the city.
Adding that to the wording.
Well, yeah. I don't know what the rest of you think. That sort of appeals to me.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good thing to add.
Okay,
We
so
got to award the trees, bringing attention to the trees and all the good work they do for the city.
rewarding innovation in city operations or something. Trying to figure out how to word this.
Yeah. Innovation, efficiency. I don't know. It seems like in the past we've given awards for people
Yeah.
that really did that.
Okay. That's totally fine. I can add that to the criteria and get back to you guys here next month with kind of what that looks like, if you would like.
If there aren't sufficient nominations, Laura, we could always, later on, suspend it, can't we?
Yeah, we definitely can.
I don't think we should put things out there just for the sake of doing it if they aren't. We have a long history of really good stuff.
So I'm curious what, yeah, we've had lots and lots of nominees in other times. What's driving it, do you think?
Well, a couple things I would think would I mean, honestly, one, we're very short-staffed, so we can't fill those positions. So your go-getters and your doers that are still here, a lot of them have left, but the ones that are still here have burnt their candles out at both ends and just literally cannot take on anything else. So it's kind of we're more surviving and making sure that city operations are happening and there's not space, time, or emotional bandwidth to innovate right now. I think is the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to say innovations aren't happening, but the other piece on that is if somebody thinks of something innovative, then we have to have the political will, the staff will, and the funding to actually implement it. And that's pretty short as well. So it's kind of a perfect storm.
Okay, any other
But
comments
I
about?
think it's not going to be permanent.
I don't think so either. I mean, something's going to give here eventually in one direction or another, and things will get back on track. So everything ebbs and flows, right?
Okay,
Okay.
Any other comments on the awards? No.
Hey, last year, real quick, last year we had nominations due in June. I think we opened them up right about Earth Week. Kind of the plan to do that again. Maybe I'll bring a final to you guys with all the new dates and everything at the next meeting, and then we'll launch Earth Week. Is that still okay with everyone?
I mean, that sounds like a good time to do it.
All right. We'll stick with the plan. Thank you.
Is there anything that city staff could do neighborhood-wise to begin to build community where people live close enough to talk to one another and work together. I mean, you know, I'm just seeing the need for building in environmental awareness at a community level that works. We get in our cars and go different places, but that ain't it. I mean, that means big pieces of steel moving around, and it costs time, money. It's just everything, you know. It's the whole thing. If we could have things that are needed at the neighborhood level. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the ideal of what I think needs to happen and trying to figure out how certain different people could implement those ideas. And I don't know how. I'm trying to figure out the interface of community or city employees finding a foothold in that kind of conception. So
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. I just laid it out there, and we are a community. Maybe we could figure something out. I mean, if
well, I can tell you that there are some grant requests out there. That's part of what we're trying to do with some of these federal grants. I know we were awarded a grant to help. Is it West Penway? Andy, do you know what grant we were awarded recently to help West Side fix some of their issues? I'm trying to remember the name of it. I know we have a grant. I'll look it up real quick. We have a grant out there right now that if we get funding, we can pay neighborhood leaders for the things they're doing in the neighborhoods and to actually host events and things like that. So
That's great.
yes, charge connecting communities. Thank you, Bridget Sanderson. We've also got we got a raise grant to help see if we can reconnect the Highway 71 corridor. We've got funding and grants out, or grants in the works for all kinds of things that will help bring neighborhoods together. Everything I'm trying to put out has a climate ambassador sort of piece to it where we can, you know, empower residents to understand the climate plan, what we need to do, and get out there and door knock in their own neighborhoods. I mean, so there's a lot in the works, but those grants are not all done. So they're all kind of in progress, Marty, but we're definitely trying. And I know, you know, we hired Kelly to be our sustainable communities coordinator. Neighborhoods asked for another neighborhood liaison in their budget that they did get, I believe, Andy.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, they got one person that they added to their budget, kind of help coordinate neighborhood volunteerism.
So I think we're moving in that direction. It's just we're turning a very big ship at a very, very slow pace.
Okay. Laura, since I've got you on here and we were already talking grants, you want to talk about the ACEEE?
Yeah, so I think late last year, we went for a grant with ACEEE to kind of help us understand from an energy efficiency and a healthy home standpoint what all funding was out there, and how we could kind of layer that funding together to do some work that was really meaningful in some of our residents and small apartment buildings. Right now we have issues, you know, we go in and the city has a minor home repair program, but the state is the one that kind of runs the weatherization program. And then we go try to layer energy efficiency, but they've got a leak in their pipes. So we can't button up a home and make it really energy efficient if it's got mold problems. So we have to fix that too. And in the end, what we end up with is a very exhausted homeowner that's had a lot of people looking at their space to try to get stuff done that should just be able to happen simultaneously. It sounds like it'd be a no-brainer, but it's really actually much harder than it sounds. So ACEEE put out an energy efficiency for homeowners technical assistant grant, which we got. And right now they are currently working on a white paper for us of all of the various funding sources that are out there, and also all of the groups that are working on similar things in Kansas City that we may not know about. So we gave them a huge list of partners and people we knew doing this work, and then they're reaching into their archives and their various networks to figure out what else is out there, and also how we can then layer the federal funding that's coming down the pike through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and all of the stuff coming out of the White House right now. And the IRA, how we can layer that to make sure we do this, we get something for homeowners that's useful. And then once they're expected to get that document to us with kind of their findings late March to early April. And then at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to present that document to all of the partners out here doing this work in the Kansas City area to get their input and on what they think, and then see if we can put together a program that is a little bit more robust and streamlined for our residences here in Kansas City. So we're hoping this grant, just because we did it, because we took the time to do it, and we took the time to bring the partners together, that it will also help prepare us for quite a bit more federal funding to do this work. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Laura.
I just put something in the chat. It's an Earth Day in your neighborhood. It's a little cartoon thing about how a neighborhood could put on an Earth Day. And it might be an idea. I don't know where it would go. It's outdated. It hasn't been updated in a decade or two.
It's neat, Marty. I like it. We'll see what we can do. We have an Earth Day Everyday page that we launch in April. We relaunch in April every year. So the city will see if we can incorporate some of this onto it.
Well, you can steal all of that. You know, I mean, whatever there is, it needs to be updated. So, but
awesome.
And
thank you.
I'd be willing to help.
Don't you have biochar or Johnson Soup composter to be working on?
Yeah, right.
Many. I saw that, Mom. Many. You're a busy man, Marty, but we might, once we get the page done, we'll send it in to you.
You know.
All right, so let's let me rattle off a few things that are going on in OEQ, and then from there we'll move on in the agenda. So a few other things. One of the things that's part of the climate plan that we talked about a lot is transparency. Just want to let everybody know, if you're wondering about where that is. For us, what that means is a dashboard of some type where we can kind of do continual tracking and showing some of the progress we are in implementing the Climate Protection Resiliency Plan. So staff has been very much looking at various products that are out there that kind of package this into a nice story type dashboard that we can use for Kansas City. There's a few products out there we like. We're looking at internal options that we've got through our own existing software products that the city already subscribes to. So hopefully before too long, I'm hoping that we can kind of come to a consensus on this soon internally and have some type of a dashboard that will put it all out there to kind of track all the various activities related to the climate plan, so folks can kind of see what's going on in real time. So keep you posted on that. Hopefully we'll have more to share on that before too long. Also just saying that we also, in the climate plan, we were directed to join the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition. So the team has gone ahead and signed us up, and we're part of that coalition now. Another one is about a year ago, Councilman Robinson sponsored a resolution kind of around the Biophilic Cities Network. So that's another one that we finally got our application in and got accepted into that particular network. So there'll be some things that we'll share in future meetings related to that. So I'm just kind of trying to put a bunch of things out here real quick as we're losing time here, running short on time. What else we have?
We submitted round 2 of our NSF grants for trees. So we finished up our first round and our second one is in.
Yep.
which includes updated tree flyover, some outreach, and several of the partner universities working on kind of social determinants overlaying on trees. Sorry, Andy, that was a fast one.
I know, that's fine. This is a lightning round now. So the next thing would be, some of you may have remembered Resolution 18-1000, which goes back to 2018, which one of the components of that resolution was to have the city certify a certain number of our facilities as Energy Star facilities, those that meet the qualifications to be Energy Star certified. So that resolution asks for a certain percentage of our facilities that are subject to Energy Star to go ahead and certify. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with using some of our ESCOs that we've got here in under contract to help us with looking at some of our facilities. I think we need 14 or 15 total facilities to certify to be in conformance with that resolution. So I think right now we have 6 or 7 that would probably certify, but we have some work to do probably on the others. But that's moving forward. Kelly's still working on our City Hall composting pilot project here in City Hall, which is becoming quite the monster. So she's working through it. We'll have her share how that works out once that gets up and running here. I think we're hoping to have that going by Earth Day as well. We met, just to put this out there as well. We did have a meeting today with the NFL. They are coming to town for the draft coming up at the end of April. So come to find out, the NFL has its own NFL Green folks. So they want to do some local projects here in Kansas City as part of the draft. So we started the conversation with them, and still a lot to be worked out, but it looks like they'll be probably doing a project or two here in Kansas City. I want to bring some kudos to our folks at the aviation department. Obviously, we all know that the terminal is up and running. It's been open for a little over a week now. And if you didn't notice, we did get LEED Gold certification for our airport. So I believe we're the second airport in the country to get LEED certified gold. So pretty exciting stuff. Yeah, pretty awesome. We're going to be putting out a few more, there may be some more blurbs out, tweets and whatever about it. I know Green Ability did do a nice piece in their last magazine on the airport. There may be a few other things to put out about it, but a lot of good things there. What else? Okay, I think that's enough for now. We are, last thing I'll mention, Solarize Kansas City, we're still working through one of the things that under that program that we required the installer that we were working with to do is to donate a community project. And so they are, right now, our team is working with the installer to look at what would be a good community project for them to donate solar panels to. They've committed to giving us let me think about this, 20 panels, I think it's a 10 kilowatt system, somewhere in the order of about $25,000 in donations from this solar installer. So we are certainly excited about that, and we'll keep you posted on what that project ends up being. But just another great outcome of the Solarize Kansas City campaign. All right, so I think that's enough. Any questions about what's going on here at OEQ? Holly, you're muted.
To remember the project you guys were, oh, I know, the health department. Moving, not moving?
Talking about the Mesonet?
Talking about vicinity and hooking into the health department, but health department might be moving?
Yeah, actually, I would not say that's dead in the water. I would say that I did find out yesterday that there is some consideration about running the loop east. So
Okay.
I would say we'll see.
We have this big new building that's going to go up in between they're on our Hospital Hill campus, and
Okay.
discussions, I'm trying to push discussions now
I
that
know.
this building has got to be LEED, and
Yeah, I
We'll
met
see.
with, yeah, I met with Vicinity 2 weeks ago, and your name came up.
Oh, you met with Jim Miller,
I did. Yeah.
my Eggman.
Yes. Yeah, he brings the eggs every time. I love that. All right. So yeah, but he did mention that, yeah, they are having some internal conversations with corporate on running that steam loop to the east. I don't know about they're going to get south to you, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, oh, they're not going to get south to our campus, but it would make sense to hook in Hospital Hill.
Yeah.
Especially if they're going to go over to the health department, because they literally
Right.
have to go right past our doorstep.
Yep. Okay.
Glad that's not dead in the water.
No. All right. Next on the agenda is the liaison report. Anything from any of the committees?
I think we might be down to Marty and Molly and Carol.
Well,
Well, nothing new from me. The air quality forum meets next week, I think.
Go ahead, Marty.
oh, I don't know. I just, I do a kind of a, I don't know, maybe I'm in over my head already. I do a kind of a meditative group thing. Have done them for about 50 years. And I went to, there's a building at 3600 Troost. And a young man is trying to build a community of young people. And they're very adventurous, and they're pretty impressive. So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware of that. And I think, I'm not sure there's a Facebook page, but I know there's an Instagram place. I think it goes by 3600, something like that. So that's interesting.
Marty, I'm trying to find you partners. I think we have partners for Tracy Garden, if you are interested.
I like that. Yeah, we could use some partners.
There's no way,
Some
there are
people
so many students that want to garden, and there's no way the university's going to let them build a garden on campus. So,
and they do it during the summer.
well, that's one of the reasons the university won't let them build a garden on campus. I don't know, but some of them will be coming to see you. On the planning committee, I've been trying to follow up on the container houses that were a question way back when, and now they seem to be actually like getting close to done. For a long time, they were just sort of empty containers right on the traffic way there, but they seem to be getting done. And I wanted to follow up on that because particularly there was no parking there for all the number of units that they were talking about putting in. And I'd like to get in touch with Gloria because she's down that way and see what their thoughts on it. That's the extent of the planning.
Great. All right, thank you. Next on the agenda, looks like old business. I don't think we have any old business.
The
New
only thing
Yeah.
I think we should talk about appointments, if there's anything new there, and remind everybody to get their conflict of interest forms in.
Okay.
Do we have any word on appointments?
Yeah, no, Carol, we talked about that. Marty was asking about that at the very beginning. It seems like Althea she's sending me emails now, in terms of acknowledging the applicants that are coming in. The last one I think that Scott found did fill out the wrong form, or it was the wrong site. And so I don't understand why people can still access the wrong application site. They have a new site for that, and I'm not sure how people are still applying on the old. So it's something I got to ask. How is there this confusion between two different sites to apply? But she did acknowledge I did get the PDF to her, and she's got it. So, but in terms of acknowledging, yeah, any appointments are coming, they're not going to go that far. And who knows? I mean, the mayor may be waiting until after the election. It's hard to say. I don't know. Right. New business? Comes down to Marty, Carol, and Molly. Any new business? No? Carol, it's just you. How about you?
Nope, nothing new.
Okay. Then last thing on the agenda, remarks from visitors. If any of our guests here have any comments or thoughts for the commission, now would be a good time. Just raise your hand and we'll give you some time.
Nobody?
Quiet bunch. Okay. Oh, we've got one. Billy. Go ahead, Billy.
Sorry, having some bandwidth issues, so roving around my house. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I shared some thoughts on what I was going to comment on earlier because I wasn't expecting to get the chance to address you all. So try to keep this brief. Appreciate you all. Again, Billy Davies, a 6th district resident, and just wanted to share an anecdote. Recently had a story from meeting with a state legislator. Was encouraging them to take action regarding a piece of environmental policy, public health and environmental policy. And I got this, me and my colleagues and my friends and neighbors got a similar reaction that we've gotten before. This is a relatively progressive legislator, just for context. They said that usually the best thing that they can do is not say anything, because if they say that it's going to an issue that they care about, or start raising issues, or start asserting facts about the issue, chances are that will mobilize folks to just destroy it just for spite. So essentially, the prevailing notion for some folks is that in our state, in order to take action at all, if you call it that, is to do nothing. This cannot be the prevailing notion if we are to ensure that we are advocating and enacting policies that protect human health and the environment, as is the charge of folks in our state and in our city government. And I think this body in particular and the staff have shown the importance of speaking up for the truth, for facts, for science, to inform policy. You don't look no further back than the enactment of the Climate Protection and Resilience Plan, a historic event for the city of Kansas City. I know that was work that started really with this group and with these advocates. And so, with relation to things like building codes and being able to make sure that these good policies are not hindered, and we're able to put people first, encourage this body to continue speaking up, to continue taking action, and encouraging our legislators in the city council to take action, whether it's encouraging planning and development staff to go defend our building code, or to encourage the council to take necessary actions informed by the public, or host public comment periods on various things. You all have been doing a great job at this, so as your colleagues on the Climate Protection Steering Committee. So encouraging you all to continue communicating along, working with the staff at OAQ to inform them of the need, of the council members, of the need to continue speaking up and to continue fighting like hell when need be, to ensure that we are moving Missouri forward towards a brighter, more prosperous future. So thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
Bridget. Go ahead.
God, now I don't feel like I shouldn't follow up with that. That was such a good. I guess my question was, and this is also, so Bridget Sanderson, I'm a part of the 5th District, and I'm also part of the Climate Protection Steering Committee. So I guess this is a question for EMC, and then also for staff, and and also with CPSC. Since y'all are so short-staffed, and I obviously don't know what all the grants are that the city has applied for. Just knowing that like the low-no bus emissions grant is coming up through the federal government, and the bus and bus facilities grant is coming up in April. I'm just curious if if you all think that this would be helpful, a way to try to prioritize funding since the budget didn't go our way, of different key aspects. Like, is there a way that EMC or even CPSC can provide the city or the grant writers or whomever, like, oh, we think that these are really great grant programs that we should maybe try to prioritize? I'm just kind of curious about that idea.
I'm going to defer to the commission first, and then I'll chime in. Carol, Marty, Molly, anything?
Aren't they all, isn't Laura and everybody else writing grants as fast as they possibly can?
Well,
Yeah.
and we don't even necessarily know all the grants. We've got Jill Lawler in the mayor's office who's working her backside off to try to keep all of these grants, but they're happening so fast.
So fast. And the deadlines are so short.
Yeah.
That's really kind of crazy.
But I'm thinking, Bridget, that bus one's coming up, and that one isn't even us, right? I mean, that's ATA that would have to apply for that.
Yeah. That's a good point. I was just trying to think of like what would be the best way to have as many eyes on it for you all, since you're so short-staffed.
Well,
Right.
and
Well,
maybe
Bridget,
it would. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Andy.
No, and I was just going to say, I mean, Bridget, that was the thing that we talked about back with the commission several months ago when we starting to get the trickle of this, is that, we certainly could use any assistance from the commission and the Climate Protection Steering Committee to help vet some of those opportunities for us and prioritize them. That was prior to some things that had changed internally, which was the city did bring on 2 contract grant writers. So
Okay.
we do have access to them. We do have dollars in our budget that I think we could provide to help us write the grants. And then, of course, the mayor's office with Jill has been doing a phenomenal job and networking with Laura and other departments on some of that stuff. So that was what my comments were, Laura. And if you had something different, go ahead and throw that out there.
No, that's great. But I think, Bridget, the other thing that you could do is, that's one thing we don't have time to do, is advocate to all these other agencies. I wish I could go out and go, hey, ATA, this is in our climate plan. Hey, this is a Mid-America Regional Council priority. You guys should go for this.
Yeah.
Bridget, if you've got the bandwidth, or the commissions have the bandwidth to go hit up those organizations that aren't city, please do.
Okay. That's great. That's good to know. Thank you.
I'm already doing that on campus, but isn't Andy and Laura, isn't there someone at the city whose job it should be to just look for everything and anything for the city?
Yeah,
And just send it out to this department and that department and help facilitate, ideally?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the representative we have in the mayor's office, but I gotta imagine, I can't say for sure because Laura works with her more directly, but even it's gotta be, I mean, she's doing a lot to assist those departments that want to engage. In some cases, we can't get some of the departments to engage, so she moves on to others that do want to engage. And Laura is, a go-getter and is looking for everything that can help us in OEQ and with the climate plan. But then you go talk to somebody in another department and you run into a little bit of a roadblock. And so that's Jill and in the mayor's office doing, like I said, a great job. I don't know what her personal feelings about whether she's doing enough, if we need more help in that regard.
Well, she does need, her feelings are she needs another staff person to do grants, but also the other piece of it is even if there was somebody out there knowing every nuance of every department to be able to know what every department could go for, have to be someone with, at least 5 years in, to kind of do that kind of work. So I think she relies on the fact that we have good staff in these departments that are are looking for these grants because it's coming down the pike. I don't know everything the transportation group's getting. Bailey's on it. Stephen Van Ryn is on it for parks. Not going to talk about water. But I know planning is definitely trying where they can to get grants as well. Housing's looking, neighborhoods is going great guns. They're finding everything they can. So, I think if you see something you want to run it across, I mean, like I said, I don't mind getting 100 of them a week, and sometimes I do, which it's fine. I'll just delete the ones that I've gotten more than once. And it would be great though if instead of just going, here's an opportunity with a link, if you could maybe put a short description of that opportunity, just like a little paragraph in, like what it is, so I don't have to go out and look at all of them separately. But yeah, that's my piece in it.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments from visitors, commissioners?
I think we're good.
Looks like we're good here. I guess we will, I don't know that Carol ever makes a motion to adjourn, but I'm happy to do that.
Second.
Yeah, but I think we should. Good. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good evening.